Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy, what is it, Tuesday night? So be Wednesday for when most of you will be hearing this. Anyway, happy Wednesday. Been kind of a slow week on my end, podcast-wise. I've been kind of busy, having a little trouble getting everything lined up schedule-wise, and also my friends are gay. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but Aaron, you know, he struggles with the gayness. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know some people would disagree. I don't see that there's anything wrong with the gayness. I'm a little confused as to why he continues to struggle with it, being as gay for as long as he has been. I'm not sure what the issue is with it nowadays. Rob, you've only begun to witness his gayness. And I don't know if Rob struggles with it, honestly. We'll delve into that when we get him back on the show, hopefully next week. We'll see how that goes. And but anyway, rolling solo, and we got some guests lined up later this week. And yeah, working on getting some cool interviews lined up. But in the meantime, I'm going to set up a form on my website. I'll excuse me. I'll make sure and put it out on social media once I get it done, so that if you have an idea for a guest or for the bull session in particular, or if you think it'd be fun to join in on one of those, I'm gonna fill out a form so I can get your contact info, whatnot, and then I have some sort of a database, you know, like the government, and so I can if I forget to ask people, I can go through that list and see who's already contacted me. Anyway, so but also that'll work for guests you'd like to see on the show. But like I said, I'll put that out there when we get to it. But in the meantime, we got news going down, and shit just gets weirder, you know. I know I sound like an old man, like some sort of boomer, because I'm like, back in my day, this was huh. Sorry, I got distracted here, and oh, huh. For some reason, this article I was gonna pull up, it's about RFK Jr. But the video at the top of the article is a lady giving birth in an elevator, and or maybe I don't know. It doesn't seem like it fits with the article, and maybe it was like simulating giving birth in an elevator. I don't know. Fucking weird. Anyhow, that made me lose my train of thought completely. So we'll just go ahead and jump into the news. Let's see, where's Drudge here? Yeah, the media has selected our candidates, or at least they're trying to, very hard to select our candidates for this next election for us. And I guess it's not real surprising that they've been able to do that before, but Where was that? That's not it. God damn it. Okay, here we go. We'll come back to the other article, but Biden and Trump are front runners for 2024, and rich Democratic donors are thrilled. Um, that is from, well, this is a Yahoo News link, but it's originally published in Bloomberg, and this was today. And it says major Democratic donors are thrilled that an elderly man who has been his party's standard bearer for years will likely reappear on the 2024 presidential ballot. And they're talking about Republican Donald Trump. Many of President Joe Biden's biggest contributors are heartened by Trump's emergence as the Republican frontrunner, and are hoping for a 2020 rematch. Pitting the current president against his predecessor would create a race that they say advantages Biden politically, policy wise, and from a fundraising perspective. Having Trump on the ticket will motivate the networks of wealthy contributors who can write big checks, according to several Biden donors who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Trump, as the GOP nominee, would also allow Biden to tap some financial support from conservatives who would otherwise be open to giving to a business friendly Republican, one donor said. So, um, yeah, Joe Biden's running again. Donald Trump's running again. And the big donors on the left wing side and some of the traditional Republican donors are excited about that because they want that they want the matchup that the vast majority of America doesn't want. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but last I heard, something around 45% of the Republican base, and I don't know what the metrics of this poll were. Um, so I don't trust polling much at all, but it's kind of what you have. I mean, what else do you go off of? And one of the things I learned about the 2020 election when I predicted a landslide, um, one of the things I got wrong was I live kind of in a little bubble, much like like the media types and your establishment ruling elite also live in a bubble, and they don't know what people out here in my part of the country, your part of the country, what we want. And we also are kind of insulated knowing that we don't like what they want, but we're talking about like people on TV and not like the regular people that live in those urban centers. And also there was a whole I guess I wasn't clued into exactly the extent of the behind the scenes deal to shift people's votes and squash certain voices and general good old fashioned overall. And I guess it was very much new fashioned. Uh, the idea is nothing new, but the methods were brand new of just good old election meddling, propaganda, censorship, and putting your thumb on the scale. So while what the way I see it is after the dust has kind of started to settle some on the 2020 election, I still say that the Republicans got outplayed by the according to the new rules of the game, regardless of how those rules came about. They generally seem to be accepted by the courts and the law and whatnot. And turns out ballot harvesting is something that the Republicans are really going to have to um, really have to pay attention to. And in the meantime, a whole bunch of people that worked for Donald Trump worked in conglomeration with these big tech companies to suppress people that would have helped him get reelected. And yeah, so the Republicans really got outplayed, and the government, like deep state, as you will, um, swung the election legally or illegally. It should have been how they did it should have been illegal. Whether it was or not, that I guess that's to be determined. But under the um, there's a lot of loophole type shit going on, and anyway, big government loves big business, and big business loves big government, and they are going to work to protect those interests, kind of at all cost. And they've got a lot of tools at their disposal, and they pulled out. I don't know if they pulled out all of them. Surely they didn't pull out all of them because who knows what they've built since then. But they pulled out a whole bunch of them for Donald Trump, and they pulled out a lot of big ones. And then you go back to the where we're at now. So I still I still think the Republicans really kind of out got outplayed Donald Trump by his own administration, um, and also by not trying to fight these election laws beforehand. I'm just kind of going off on a tangent. Anyways, we're back to 2020, except now there is no more pandemic yet. Yet, who knows? If you paid attention a little bit to these current situations going on around the world, Ukraine. Remember when it was a conspiracy theory to say that there was a bunch of biolabs in Ukraine, and you were crazy conspiracy theorist and probably racist and possibly anti-Semitic if you suggested that maybe the reason we were back in Ukraine so hard is there was a whole bunch of bioweapons in Ukraine that we funded, and then well, yeah, it turns out that was true, and it wasn't just like a couple of them; it was something like 28. Now, allegedly, I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Um, but now you may have heard a little bit about Sudan here in the last week or two. And it turns out there's some shit going down there, kind of another civil war type that I'll have to pull up the meme. I don't know if I can put it up on the screen. I've got to get it off my phone, and my AirDrop's not working very good. But there's a timeline of different events in which the U.S. was involved with Sudan, and it's pretty interesting. All right, so this is Kate Bowen sent this to me, and it just says Sudan Cliff Notes, and I have not followed up on all of these dates, but provides a little bit of a timeline going back to August 24th of 2022. So not quite a year ago. So this happened pretty quick, really. U.S. ambassador is appointed to Sudan following a 25-year lapse. So 2022, that means we haven't had an ambassador over there because we apparently didn't have diplomatic relations with the Sudan since 97? Yeah, 1997. September 28th, 2022, about a month later, U.S. ambassador warns Sudan against finalizing Russian naval base deal. So now the picture starts to become a little bit more clear. Um, Russia's kind of boxed in by NATO. And that seems to, if you remember, like any of the demands from the Russians towards the Ukrainians, one of the big ones is that Ukraine doesn't become part of NATO because NATO would put them in an alliance with the United States in particular, but the rest of the Western world essentially, or at least Europe, I guess, Europe and Canada, and then and the United States, Western Europe, anyways, and a lot of Eastern Europe. Um, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, all these Soviet satellites became independent, and one by one, the U.S. and NATO have went ahead and gobbled them up and put them into to made them members of NATO, who we are sworn to protect and defend if they are attacked militarily, not just sending weapons this time, but actually sending troops. So anyway, that was a big thorn in the side for Russia, particularly with Ukraine. It was a big red line for him. And now Russia's at war with Ukraine. We're at war with Russia via Ukraine. Um, Troops on the ground in Ukraine, by the way, U.S. Special Forces troops, and who knows how many's there. But that was something we weren't supposed to do. We were just supposed to send them defensive weapons, and now we've increasingly sent them longer range and more sophisticated weapons. And now there are people on both sides of the aisle in Congress pushing to send longer range missiles and F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. And in the meanwhile, apparently Russia's trying to get together a deal with Sudan for a naval base, and all of a sudden, even though we haven't been there in 25 years, U.S. sends an ambassador over there. And ambassadors used to be statesmen, like they were diplomats. They talked with their counterparts and and try to work out a deal, keep the peace. And essentially, since the Cold War, all of our, well, not all, but a lot of our diplomats and State Department type people have essentially just become intertwined with the intelligence agencies. And so, anyway, that the ambassador warns Sudan in September, late September 2022, November 11th, 2022. Uh, Anthony Blinken, who is the Secretary of State, urges Sudan to consider U.S. support for the rapid formation of a civilian led transitional government, which essentially means a puppet government with, friendly towards us. December 5th, 2022, UN brokers a framework agreement between Sudan's military leaders and leading pro-democracy parties. December 7th, Blinken threatens a travel ban for Sudanese who endanger the framework agreement deal. And then February 12th, 2023, Sudan confirms the deal for a Russian naval base. Key players are Sergei Lavrov and Buran. I don't know who that is, but Sergei Lavrov, I believe, is the Russian foreign minister. He's high up in the Russian government, but I believe he's foreign minister, which would essentially be like our Secretary of State. So pretty powerful individual. February 16th, the Biden administration sends $288 million in humanitarian aid to Sudan. I don't know what the humanitarian aid was for. I'm assuming that Sudan has been a pretty war torn country. I'm not sure of their recent past, outside of this shit popping off here just a couple weeks ago. Um, but anyway, we sent 288 million in humanitarian aid. What that actually means, whether that was weapons or not, I don't know. Um, March 9th, Victoria Newland, who's also balls deep in this Ukraine Russia stuff, visits Sudan to, quote, discuss democracy. April 8th, the conflict escalates between Sudanese armed forces under General Burhan. Okay, so Sudanese armed forces, General Burhan, he is the guy who made the deal with the Russians and Sergei Lavrov. And the paramilitary group RSF is under somebody named Dagalo. And then on April 22nd, we evacuated the embassy in Ukraine or in Sudan. Khartoum is the capital there. And there's several thousand US citizens still left there, and the fighting over there is not really slowed down. There's supposed to be a ceasefire going on. But they're not really, neither side's really abiding by it. And yeah, so there's a bunch of fighting over in Sudan, which is neat, and it seems to me anyways that like maybe we had a little bit of a hand in making that happen, which is not great. Definitely not great considering we're um pushing towards war with Russia. We're pushing towards war with China. I'm pretty sure we could fuck some shit up in Sudan as long as we didn't try to stay there and export democracy. But if like we want to take a bad guy out, like, we're pretty good at doing that. Um, we're not so good at the after part here. The last 80 years or so. Um, but when you're facing up against Russia and China, like, Dad, do you really want to fuck around with Sudan? Like, and apparently we said nope, nope, it's not. We're getting out there. But in the meanwhile, we've got a lot of people still there. Sudan's in North Africa, very close to the, well, I get on the map wise, looks pretty close to the Middle East. I don't know exact distances. Um, and so you've got this situation that looks like it could drop off, or maybe it'll go away, but it seems like it could pop off into something um pretty serious. And that region, ever since we started meddling around there back in well, you could say in like 1948, when they established the state of Israel, reestablished, I guess, and Palestinians kind of got the raw end of the stick. That pissed a lot of people off in the Arab world, for you know for kind of obvious reasons. And then we overthrew a guy in Iran in '53 that was democratically elected, installed the Shah, who was a brutal dictator, who was later overthrown and then led to probably an even more brutal Islamic dictator. And that's just Iran. Um, and then you go through the timeline, and then you get all the Iraq stuff. We still have troops in Syria, which is kind of a hotbed. Israel has been bombing it pretty frequently here lately, and Turkey has some shit going down there. Syria borders Turkey and Israel and Iraq, and so they all have shit going down in there. We got troops in there. The Russians have troops in there because they deployed troops there to help us fight ISIS, which we funded, and then we went and fought them, which is kind of the pattern for the U.S. foreign policy over the last about 80 years. And then Sudan's in there somewhere in that region. So like we have a long track record for having a knack being able to stir some shit up over there in the Arab um in the Arab world and Israel. So this thing in Sudan, but it also involves Russia. So it all leads back to Russia. Like we hate Russia for some reason. And meanwhile, we got all of this building up, and it is now May of 2023, which means we have little over a year and a half. No, we have less than a year and a half. Yeah, right. I guess right at a year and a half until uh until we elect a new president. Um, no, going by the last couple election standards, it'll be like 19, 20 months before we find out who's actually elected. But allegedly, we'll all be done voting here in about 18 months. Um, and it seems like the media, obviously, they're propping up Biden. For some reason, they're still this guy's still the guy, and they're trying to make sure that he's the guy. He's got two challengers right now, Marianne Williamson, who they don't treat as a serious candidate. I also don't really treat her as much of a serious candidate. She seems to be a little hippy dippy, a lot hippy dippy, a little too hippy dippy, even for a lot of Democrats. Then you also have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I don't know a ton about, but I've heard a lot about him here lately. Um, did a little bit of cursory background work on him. He's lately been known for writing his book, the Real Anthony Fauci, which he really goes hard against Anthony Fauci, which I like. That guy's a piece of shit. One of the biggest reasons I don't think I'll ever vote for Trump again. And so he wrote this book about Fauci exposing his dirty laundry from the past and all the way up through the COVID stuff, particularly with vaccines. This RFK Jr.'s he's a old school vaccine guy, like well before COVID was a thing. He's also kind of a radical environmentalist, which I don't like. Um, but he's kind of been making some waves, and the powers that be are trying to just smash that down, squash it before it takes off. But I don't know. Once again, come the polling, I don't know how much I trust any of it, but it's what we got to go off of. They're showing RFK Jr. with like 20% in the one of the latest polls. So it was like I forget what Biden was at, but um, I think Marianne Williamson was at 9 or 10%, which is not nothing. It's not a lot, um, considering it's a poll. No hard votes taken or anything, but it's not it's not nothing. But then RFK Jr. is at 20%, which is pretty significant. And you have the Democrats already saying there's not going to be any primary debates. Um, when you look at other polls, going back to like the Trump, I think it was like 45% of the base says they don't want him to run again. So still a pretty solid majority. I wouldn't say a, an overwhelming majority, but 55%, that's a pretty big number. Um but it was before the 2020 election, it was like 90%. Uh 95%. I don't know. It was a high number that wanted him to run again. So he's fell off considerably, but still has a pretty commanding majority. Joe Biden's at like 2/3 of his own party uh, don't really want him to run. His approval ratings in the 40s, 30s, and 40s, so not good, but can't really judge much off of that. There's a lot of people that won't approve of a guy that still vote for him because they hate the other guy more, and that seems to be where we're at in this deal. We have Donald Trump saying he's not going to debate in the primaries. The DNC saying they're not going to even schedule any primaries for the scheduling any debates for the primaries. Even though between the other two candidates that are already in the race, they're gathering roughly 40% of of the polling numbers. So like seems like maybe you ought to hash that out. And if Joe Biden is that much your guy, he should be able to talk his way into your hearts, and lick the world or some whatever weird shit that guy says. But the media, while they're keeping the pressure on Trump over all of these indictments and whatnot, they sure seem to be trying to push and keep him right at the forefront. They want him to run because they think they can beat him, which they probably can, but also Donald Trump is kind of a juggernaut when it comes to this shit, and you never do know. But they have been kind of been an all out assault on DeSantis here lately, which means they actually see him as a threat. Um, and anyway, so this seems to be like the media. I called this episode Undistinguished Elders because it looks like once again they are propping up two old wealthy white dudes that most of the country don't like at all, and they're already laying the stage for you. This is who it is, and part of me just wants to say fuck it. All right, well, let Trump go out there and do his thing again, and maybe the Republicans will get smart for once and play like sound strategy in their campaign, and they learned their lesson from 2020, and they're going after they're going out there and getting ballots harvested and whatnot, and they got more of a ground game and whatever. And well, let's say Donald Trump wins again. Well, then the media will have not learned their lesson once again, and also, I mean, I think uh, that's a pretty good chance that could happen. Should the race come down to Trump Biden, I think that's a good possibility that it happens. Yeah, that Trump somehow um forgets all or learns from all the mistakes that he made in 2016 and 2018 and 2020 and 2022. And I know that he only ran in 16 and 20, but as the kind of the standard bearer for the party, he took a bath in 2018 on the midterms. You lost the Senate in the House and the Senate in 2020, and you barely clawed back the House with one of the most unpopular presidents in modern American history. um, when typically the opposition party kind of cleans house during those type of elections, like in 2018, when the Democrats really gained a lot of seats in the House. So, anyways, Trump hasn't done well since 2016 as far as election goes, but maybe he learns from all that, and people also see that he's clearly more there mentally than Joe Biden. Um, although he's still really fucking old. Um, so I can see that happening that he wins, and I can also see where Donald Trump does something stupid. Maybe calls a rally, a giant rally, and says it's gonna be wild and shit, and then talks about how they stole a bunch of votes from him and whatnot, and then tells him to go march somewhere peacefully, and shit gets out of hand again. I could see that happen. I could any number of things Donald Trump could do to shoot himself in the foot. He's done it plenty. So they're setting us up for that again. And they're both setting the precedent right now that they're not going to debate in primaries. So like what makes you think that's not going to carry over into the general election? So now you just have two guys that are just talking shit about each other in different parts of the country and never actually have to like stay in the same room and and debate each other. It seems to be what that's setting the stage for, and it just like it's all a show. Um, there's a lot of people that like DeSantis. There's a lot of people apparently that like RFK Jr. Where was that article? So this was interesting as well. It's a New York Post article, and ABC News cuts RFK Jr.'s vaccine remarks out of an interview. An ABC host admitted that the network edited statements Robert F. Kennedy Jr. made about the COVID-19 vaccine out of an exclusive interview conducted with the long shot Democratic presidential candidate. The last time a Kennedy was called a long shot was in 1960 when he won the presidency. With a little help from his friends down in Chicago, the mafia and whatnot. Uh, but RFK Jr. is a long shot Democratic presidential candidate, and I bet you a lot of people didn't know he was even running at the time, and he's getting 20% support in the polls. I don't know if that's just off the Kennedy name alone or if that's off um his own efforts with this Anthony Fauci book, but I don't know. So they said we should note that during our conversation, Kennedy made false claims about the COVID-19 vaccines. Anchor Lindsay Davis said in a disclaimer when the interview aired Thursday. We've used our editorial judgment in not including expanded portions of that exchange in our interview. Data shows that the COVID-19 vaccine has prevented millions of hospitalizations and deaths from disease, Davis added. He also made misleading claims about the relationship between vaccination and autism. So I'm not going to get into the whole vaccine autism debate. I don't know enough about it. I don't know how much I care about it at this point. Um, but they didn't tell you what the false claims about the COVID-19 vaccines were. They just said we're not going to show them because they're false. um, so this is ABC News. One of the major network news. That's the one that's free, and they're just going to decide you don't need to know that. You don't need to hear it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you might want to hear it. No, just we're not going to show it because that's wrong. And yeah, it just seems like there's this all big play. They want They want Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and they expect Joe Biden to win. And seems a little against this our democracy that we're constantly being preached about, how much of a like Donald Trump is a danger to our democracy. But here we are, they're just like crowding us down this funnel point where it's just it all ends up with Trump versus Biden, and the game's going to be rigged in favor of Biden. Yeah, it seems a little anti-democratic. Um, in the meantime, we had the number one the number one cable news anchor. He gets fired. Tucker Carlson gets fired from Fox News. Fox News is embroiled in a whole bunch of legal battles with first with Dominion voting machines and also with Smartmatic voting machines. Um, both of which, the Dominion one was settled before it went to trial, but not before a bunch of nasty stuff came out that Fox didn't want the general public to see. Ended up settling before trial, and they agreed to pay $787 million to Dominion, which I think somebody said was essentially equal to like the yearly revenue of Dominion for about 60 years or some shit like that. A lot of money. They also had to admit that they were wrong on a few things, and then shortly after, Tucker Carlson gets fired, and now they've been leaking a bunch of videos about him trashing Fox News and Fox Nation and airing a whole bunch of dirty laundry. But this is the latest one, and they're coming at him on the racism level, which is not surprising. That's a favored tactic of the progressive left, the Democratic Party. Text message sent by Tucker Carlson that set off panic at the highest levels of Fox on the eve of its $1 billion defamation trial showed its most popular host sharing his private inflammatory views about violence and race. The discovery of the message contributed to a chain of events that ultimately led to Mr. Carlson's firing. In the message sent to one of his producers in the hours after violent Trump supporters stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, Mr. Carlson described how he had recently watched a video of a group of men, Trump supporters, he said, violently and attacking an Antifa kid. It was 3 against 1, at least, he wrote. And then he expressed a sense of dismay that attackers like him were white. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously, he wrote. It's not how white men fight. But he said he found himself for a moment wanting the group to kill the person he described as the Antifa kid. For years, Mr. Carlson espoused views on his show that amplified the ideology of white nationalism. I forget what he said, but he mentioned like the replacement theory, which I'm sure a bunch of white nationalists agree with it, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a white nationalist ideology. What the replacement theory is, and I don't think it's too much of a theory at this point, that open borders will lead to the browning of America, which is something that Democrats have boasted about over the years. And when we look through the presidency of Joe Biden up to date, there's been about 2 million illegal border crossings. and most of them from South America. Um, and then a push to legalize them, a push throughout uh, plenty of states, these sanctuary states, to allow illegal immigrants to go ahead and vote. Um, and eventually, they, you know, that the theory goes that they eventually will replace white people. That was kind of you know, the chant at Charlottesville that the Democrats still love to talk about is a bunch of knuckleheads chanting around saying, "You will not replace us." But anyway, so then he says, but the text message revealed more about his views on racial superiority. The text alarmed the Fox board, which saw the message a day before Fox was set to defend itself against Dominion voting systems before a jury. The board grew concerned that the message could become public at trial when Mr. Carlson was on the stand, creating a sensational and damaging moment that would raise broader questions about the company. The day after the discovery, the board told Fox executives that it was bringing an outside law firm to conduct an investigation into Mr. Carlson's conduct. Um, okay, that there was another article that I think it was Mediaite, maybe. Um, but they had the full text, and they left out a whole bunch in this article. Here we go. So then the entire text that was sent, um he says, a couple of weeks ago I was watching a video of people fighting on the street in Washington. A group of Trump guys surrounded an Antifa kid and started pounding the living shit out of him. It was 3 against 1 at least. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable, obviously. It's not how white men fight. Yet suddenly I found myself rooting for the mob against the man, hoping they'd hit him harder and kill him. I really wanted them to hurt the kid. I could taste it. Then somewhere deep in my brain an alarm went off. This isn't good for me. I'm becoming something I don't want to be. The Antifa creep is a human being. As much as I despise what he says and does, as much as I'd hate him, I'm sure I'd hate him personally if I knew him. I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somewhere, somebody probably loves this kid and would be crushed if he was killed. If I don't care about those things, if I reduce people to their politics, how am I better than he is? So there, this is kind of front page on Drudge right now, and this is like the latest thing. They're like, see, Tucker's a bad guy. This no wonder Fox fired him. But when it comes to this suit against Dominion, it was for defamation about the Dominion voting machines turning Trump votes into Biden votes, which has not no evidence of that has ever no solid evidence of that has ever surfaced that I'm aware of. I'm sure I've heard the stories about bouncing it from server to server and whatnot, and there's probably something about these Dominion machines that are not great. I'm sure there is, but as far as them changing numbers on the voter tally, I'm not seeing any hard evidence of it yet. That being said, what does that text message about Tucker Carlson having a internal personal moment where he says to himself, "I'm no better than this guy that's getting the shit beat out of him, and no matter how bad I want this guy to get the shit beat out of him, if I think like that, then and I don't humanize the guy there, and he's just another faceless Democrat, then I'm no better than he is." So that article that I was reading earlier, that was from where was that? That was That was from the news. DN, what is it? DNYUZ. Um, I don't know much about them, but you see them around a bunch. Anyhow, they left out the whole part where he's like, "Hey, this is not a good thing for me to think about." And then they focused on that one statement. And that's not how white men fight. Um, I mean, it's not a great look, I guess. It does come off as kind of racist. Um, at least prejudiced. Sure. But he didn't single out anybody except white men. That's not how white men fight. Was he referring to black men? Was he referring to Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Russian? I don't know. You can make your own, jump to your own conclusions on that. But the only group of people he singled out was white men, and it was nothing about voting machines. So unless they bring this up as to like call into question his character, which I'm sure was part of it. Tucker Carlson's not really the one that they were after in this lawsuit. It was more just Fox in general. Um, More higher up the food chain, like Rupert Murdoch. And Tucker Carlson, and I like some of the stuff he does. His laugh gets me. It's unsettling. His like giggle. But that's other than that, like I think he does pretty good work. And he went hard against Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, who were some of the crazier people out there. I don't know about Mike Lindell. I don't know what his thoughts on Mike Lindell were, but he went hard against some of these big time stop the steal people, the crazies. And they keep leaking this stuff about like what Tucker actually thought about Fox News, and then this one where he says, white men don't fight like that. Um I would assume he was probably talking referring to black dudes stomping somebody into the ground. You see a lot of videos of that. But you see that with white folks too, but not as much, I don't think. I don't have the numbers around me, but I think it's I don't want to speculate too much, but I mean, I could see why you could see he might be talking about black dudes. And um is he prejudiced against them? Probably. We all are at some point or another. Like we're all pretty prejudiced against each other, but this has nothing to do with the Dominion case. Talking shit about Fox News and how they run stuff and how their Fox Nation site sucks has nothing to do with Dominion. Um, One thing's for sure, though, if you look back, you know, go back about 20 years ago on Fox News, they were beating the war drum to go to war in Iraq, led by a Republican president. Fox is the Republican news for the most part. And Trump kind of threw a wrench into that because he was at least in rhetoric, pretty anti-war, at least anti-intervention war. He had no problem taking out that Soleimani dude, but he didn't invade another country that we're aware of while he was president, and that kind of throws a wrench into the whole Fox News conglomerate, where they can be the right wing war hawks instead of the left wing war hawks, like those silly commies over at MSNBC or CNN. They all have the same views, but they'll argue about like tax rates and stuff. Um, Trump was the only one speaking out against the Ukraine thing on the Republican side for the most part, outside of your typical kind of good ones that they're typically good on stuff. Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. So then we have Tucker Carlson, who's also spoke out strongly against the Ukraine stuff, and doesn't really go with the culture of Fox News. They like us, peace through strength, except it's more just strength through strength. Like it just we're used to just strong arming these little countries all over the world, and using the military to do so. And Fox News has been, I mean, that's been their ball game for a long time until Trump come along. And now now you have their number one, not only their number one you know primetime host, but like the number one primetime host in all of cable television. And he's talking about how bad this Ukraine war is. And then all of a sudden, as we're getting ready to really gear up for this 2024 election, the number one cable TV host who was speaking out against Ukraine is now no longer on the number. Well, I just saw a deal that MSNBC is now the number one cable news network, after Fox dominating it for fucking ever. Um, so I don't think it's all that much of a coincidence that they got rid of him. And the Dominion stuff, they lumped Tucker Carlson in with the whole Stop the Steal stuff and all the crazy shit that Trump and his cohorts have been pushing on the election. Um, they lumped Tucker Carlson in with him after this settlement, but I don't think Tucker Carlson's firing had anything to do with Dominion voting machines, Smartmatic voting machines, or really anything 2020 election related. I think it has a lot more to do with his stance on the Ukraine situation, and trying to influence people that we don't need to be involved. So um, that's my take on the Tucker Carlson thing, and it's quite quite interesting, the response from not only the other media figureheads and outlets, but also members of Congress who they got it. They're cheering him on, and they're saying like, "Go even further now. Go do this guy." And it's kind of spooky. They AOC said deplatforming works, and somebody else said like, now take out the rest of the trash, which I would not shed a single tear if Fox News suffered just a painful death. The Fox News as a company. I think they are toxic, just as I think that MSNBC and CNN and all of the cable news, Newsmax, you can throw them in there too. They're all just it's a toxic way to to do journalism. It's not journalism, and it's even been testified to in court by the people who were, during defamation trials. Tucker Carlson, Rachel Maddow. um, I don't know about anyone in particular from CNN, but I'm sure they're on that list who they've all testified in court that they are not news outlets, but rather, you know, they're classified as entertainment because they are providing opinion, rather than the news. And if they say that under oath, I would say that's I would go ahead and believe them on that part. So, yeah, cable news is garbage. I don't care if Fox News dies a slow, painful death. Um, but I don't think we should just get rid of them because the other side doesn't like them. Just like I don't think we should be calling for the removal of people from CNN. No, I'm calling for people don't watch them because they're garbage. You don't have to give them your time or your eyeballs. And but that's not censorship. I think they can say whatever the fuck they want. I don't have to listen to it, and I don't have to watch it, and I don't. So unless it's makes for a good clip to make fun of. I was gonna report on this dairy down in Texas where it was like 18,000 dairy cows died in an explosion, but there there is not many details at all about that out. So I don't have anything to report other than apparently it was a big explosion, and there's a lot that doesn't make too much sense because they said 18,000 cows died. Um, that's a big dairy. That's a that is a large dairy, and typically your cows are not in the milking parlor all at the same time. And an 18,000 head dairy, that's probably gonna I don't know. I don't, I don't know how many acres that would be, but I would want to say somewhere around at least a half section, so 320 acres, if not more, to house that many in a confinement deal. That'd have to be a big fucking explosion, or all of your cattle had to have been concentrated at one point. And I don't know. I don't have any details on it, but it seems a little weird. Um, Particularly for that number of cattle to be killed in one explosion, unless it was a series of. I like I said, I don't have any. I couldn't find hardly any details about it. It was down at Dimmitt, Texas, which is south of Amarillo, there in the Panhandle, and yeah, I don't have anybody got any local gossip or anything that outside of what's been reported by various media outlets. If you got any sort of information on that, let me know. I'd like to find out about it. Maybe I'll follow up on it. Give me some leads. Maybe I'll do some real journalism. Probably not. But I'll think about it. And no, actually, I'd be interested to see what the story is behind that. So I don't know. That was an article I was gonna or a topic I was gonna cover, but like I said, just couldn't find much. There's a whole lot of Ukraine, China war stuff. The army's having a hard time recruiting again, and yeah, we better hope we're not actually sending troops. So like lots of troops, going to full blown war with Russia or China because yeah, the way the military is staffed now and the amount of recruits they're getting, there ain't no way we're going to go fight a war over in Europe or Asia without bringing back a draft. I don't see it happening. So, you don't want that to happen. You better start, you know, talking to your elected officials and telling them hey, what the fuck, back off. This is dumb. But I don't see that happening. After for all the fight over the Speaker of the House, um, the chairman of the committees on so like the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Armed Services Committee are both chaired by just your typical Republican neocons that ain't they haven't seen a war yet that they don't want to send somebody to go fight, and they're the ones pushing for um, longer range missiles, um, tanks, fighter jets, everything, and yeah, I could see them also pushing for for even more boots on the ground. So um yeah, if you don't want this shit to happen, you like people need to start putting a bug in their congressman's ear, their senator's ear, and letting them know how much you like actually calling their office. I hear from people that used to work uh on Capitol Hill, as a staffer, an aide or something, and they say that the biggest thing that works is like when you call because they have to call, they have to answer, they have to provide answers, and it makes their life annoying, and they don't want to be annoyed by the peasants like us. So if you make enough noise, they'll eventually do something so that they don't have to hear from you again. So, anyways, especially all you young fellas under the age of 30, man, I would be making some phone calls if unless you want to get drafted and get airdropped into fucking Siberia or something. Like who knows what goofy shit can happen when something really pops off. So get ahead of it now because we are steadily just marching towards that. And we all know that ends in nuclear war, and that's not good for anybody alive. Um, so I won't go into too much more on that because it's kind of depressing and it's kind of the same old shit. But I did find a really good article. Um, here we go. This is a fun one. We'll end on that. We're a little over an hour in, so it's a good one to end on. And I'm sorry that Rob and Aaron were too gay to be here to enjoy this article. But I didn't think it could wait. From New York Post. I'm gonna put it full screen here for you guys, so you can really bask in it. Headline from it's in Men's Health. The headline is I funny. They call it Men's Health and not penis having person's health. Um, anyway, it says I have a micro penis. This is how I break the news to sexual partners by Ben Cost. Let's see what Ben Cost's deal is. Oh, he's got social links. Uh, he's a features reporter covering everything from Sharks Attack to TikTokers with Michael Jackson phobias, and a man who sued Apple for $1 billion over an iPhone malfunction. I'm guessing he didn't win that because he's still writing for the New York Post. Huh. Anyways, he has mastered the art of small talk. A man with a self proclaimed micropenis is going viral after revealing how he breaks the news about his minuscule manhood to potential sex partners. The anonymous anatomy teacher divulged his techniques. They put teacher in quotes for broaching the uncomfortable subject in I hate I hate that I was born with a micropenis. A viral thread and Ask Me Anything forum currently blowing up on Reddit. I've experienced many awkward, embarrassing moments. User LS Zen7 confessed while describing his purported adult micropenis, defined by the Cleveland Clinic as a member that measures 30.67 inches or less when stretched. For instance, the average erect penile length for an adult clocks in at 5.25 inches, according to experts in such things. The user claimed that his wee willy is only a quarter of an inch while flaccid. Holy shit. That's unfortunate. That's over 6 times smaller than the threshold for a micropenis. Having a micropenis is so rare that it only affects around 0.6% of the world's male population. So 0.6% of the world population has a dick that measures less than 3 2/3 inches. And this dude has a 1/4 inch. I wonder, is he a grower? Apparently not too much of a grower. I mean, it's hard to make too much more out of a 1/4 inch, I think. I mean, like when he really gets horned up, is it like make a full inch? I mean that's growing, you know, 4 times. So man. Meanwhile, the Reddit masses had questions about how he handles life with a little penis, especially when it comes to the boudoir. How do you approach sexual relationships when you meet a girl? Like, do you inform her first or you just go for it and pray for the best? Inquired one inquisitive poster. Fortunately, he was able to give them the long and short of breaking the ice. Let me get my newscaster voice on. Fortunately, he was able to give them the long and short of breaking the ice. I don't bother lying. That's when I need my sign off. I'll come back to that. Um, I don't bother lying to women about my size, to be honest. But like in the beginning stages, like those talk uh, to get to know you stages, and if it's brought up during one of those sexy time talks, I'll be honest and say my size. He admitted. Other times, like heat of the moment, just hooked up with a woman. When it happens, I'll take mine out and just hope for the best. Unfortunately, ripping off this proverbial band aid generally leads to humiliating situations, he admitted. I mean, most every partner I've been with were kind of disappointed. I mean, I've sort of felt it, and normally it's an awkward, embarrassing experience from there. He lamented while answering viewer queries on how women respond to learning about the elephant in the room. The Redditor said he first found out he had a micropenis while visiting the doctor with his parents as a kid. I sort of vaguely remember at maybe 6 years, like a last memory of my parents talking on it with a doctor. He described, as I grew up, I didn't really bring it up at all. Bring it up, really not at all, just sort of dealt with it alone. However, the poor fellow realized something was definitely awry when he reached high school and realized that his member had not grown since he was younger. This guy who wrote it is hilarious. To make a long story short, having a micro penis made his love life a living hell. Dating and sex. Make a long story short. I love a good dick joke. I love a good dick pun. And that'll be the dick joke of the week for so Dan Given and Pavo. There you go. I haven't done the dick joke of the week in a while. I apologize. You guys have to keep me accountable on that one. Uh, Dating and sex became a struggle most of the time. It's awkward. When he tries to pleasure partners in other ways that don't involve a penis, he replied that it's not as easy for me as the mood is generally killed after they witness his teeny weeny. As a result of his condition, the poor fellow says he has yet to make it past second base. Nobody's flicked his bean. Oh man, he should go after a lesbian. It'd be. I mean, if it's only a 1/4 inch, that's that's essentially like licking a clit. For all you young fellas out, the clit is it is real, exists, and the ladies like it when you pay attention to it. Um, he should go after a lesbian. Like, what do they have to lose? I mean, I wonder if this dude has. Surely he's yanked it. I mean, You can't yank it too hard though. I mean, does it rip off? I mean, is it kind of like a skin tag? A quarter inch. All right, so hold on. Now, here, next sentence here. Interestingly, his 1 inch blunder. They said before it was a quarter inch. Um, oh, this is funny. Interestingly, his 1 inch blunder runs counter to one San Francisco sexpert who claims that micro penises can paradoxically enhance the sex experience as it forces people to think outside the box. Um, that's a dude with a small dick that had a lot of women lie to him. That's who that is. Unfortunately, the Redditor says that his small penis problems extend beyond the bedroom, claiming that he's been made fun of throughout the years because of it. I mean, you get it, dude. You get it. I mean, how do you expect a guy with a little dick, say a solid 4 inches, just above that micro penis threshold, and you're packing as well, depending on the case here, that they've said a quarter inch and they've said a 1 inch. Either way, at the minimum, you're looking at the small dick dude with four times the dick you got. Um, you're a dude, you get it. Is it right? Probably not. Should you just come to expect it at this point and just maybe don't talk about your dick? That'd be my guess. He said, I mean, growing up, I always avoided the boys' locker rooms. Good idea. And the pool and beaches, because of my size. In Battle Dad described many embarrassing moments throughout my life. Many embarrassing moments throughout my life. Hell, once or twice at my job because of how the seat of my uniform pants look on me. So he was showing camel toe in his work pants. Um, Using the restroom, I avoid urinals and just wait for a stall. Um, he said he would sometimes even sit to take a leak to avoid making a mess because his micro penis is difficult to aim. Um, So the Redditors were quick to commend the poster on being so candid about such an embarrassing and debilitating condition. He seemed quite at ease with it and accepting of it, praised one commenter. It's obviously a massive stigma around it for men, and even as a slightly above average, but nothing to write a home about, man. I get nervous to whip it out the first time. I really feel for you, bro. Um, Says, I mean, the insecurity gets better, the better of me some days for sure, but it's the hand I'm dealt. All I can do is accept myself. He said he didn't foresee him undergoing penis enhancement procedures, a common question on the thread. Supposedly, penile enlargement surgery is a thing, but from what I've read, it's normally practiced illegally, and it's expensive and high risk. And it's high risk. I mean, as much of a risk as other surgeries. But it's very damaging to the part. Luckily, the Redditor is not alone in his struggle, with many members of the micro penis community fighting back against the stigma of being less than well endowed. In 2021, dozens of men hit the streets of Los Angeles for a small dong march seeking to end the so called shame associated with having an undersized penis. The prior year, micro penis activists launched Dinky One, a matchmaking website that aims to combat penis size by helping those with smaller phalluses find love. God bless the internet. God bless the United States of America. Holy shit. Oh, and now I gotta go back and find my quote here so I can sign off like a real newscaster. Um Where was that at? Fortunately, he was get the pipes lubed up because well, we're talking about dicks here. So fortunately, he was able to give them the long and the short of breaking the ice. And on that note, you guys have a good Thursday or Wednesday. We'll be back Thursday. Caleb Hawley, I believe, will be on the show doing a little bull session. And yeah, make sure if you'd like to catch the bonus segments, ad-free stuff, all that good stuff, head over to patreon.com/burning daylight. Sign up there. That's the easiest way, best way to support the show. Share it around, click subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, all the stuff. Share my stuff, get it out there if you like it. It helps me spread the audience, helps me do more cool shit. So for me and my gay friends, Aaron and Rob, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done